Okay, so far we've looked at entering numbers, texts, dates and times. Now we're going to have a look at how we can manipulate data that we've put into Excel. And by manipulate, we're going to be talking about copy and paste. So first of all, I'm just going to start by entering some generic data. Let's put in hello, you. And here I have two cells. Each cell has text in it. And I can see that text appear in the cell directly and in the formula bar. Okay, so from here I can copy this data. The simplest way to do that is to right click, look for the copy command, which is near the top. It is now copied into the clipboard, and we know that the data is being copied because we see these marching ants moving around the cell. It tells me that the data is copied and still held in the clipboard. From here I've used the copy command. I can now paste. Let's have a quick look at paste, and I can paste it into Excel somewhere else. But coming back to copy, let's look at a different method of copying. So I've copied there using right click. I can also copy using Control C. Again, Control C or Control Copy will effectively take that information, put it on the clipboard, and again we'll see the marching ants surrounding the cell. And from there I could, if I wanted to, paste it somewhere else using Control V or using a right click. Now it is also important to notice that I can not just copy a cell, I can copy a range of data. So let's say we have some numbers in here and some more information over here. I can copy the entire column, and you'll see the marching ants surrounding the entire region. With this data now, with the marching ants, I can take that information, place my cursor somewhere else, right click, and use the paste command to paste that data somewhere else. So we've already looked at some pasting just in order to be able to demonstrate that I was copying. But let's look at some different ways of pasting. We've already looked at the right click command and then pressing paste. But we can also use the shortcut Control V. I can still use the data that's in the clipboard, so I can just press Control V again and it will be pasted. And I can paste it repeatedly in different locations. We've also copied and pasted a column. I can paste just in the same area that I had originally, or I can paste over bigger areas. So for example, if I just select one cell, I right click and paste, Excel will take all of the data that was in the clipboard, which is in a table of one column with 4 rows, and it will paste that information from the top cell down and across. But notice that I can also stipulate a larger area if I want Excel to paste into a specific area. So let's just see what happens. I've now selected a bigger area and I'm going to press Control and V to paste. I can also right click and use the paste command. But what you will notice is the data that I had, even though it was only one column, it has now been pasted and repeated over and over again. So it has been repeated column-wise and also row-wise. There was my first row, second row, third and fourth, and when it ran out of rows, it pasted it again, first row, second row, third and fourth. And in fact, if I wanted to, I could paste a much larger area, and Excel would paste whatever information was on the clipboard to fit that area. So these are two standard ways of copying and pasting. Now let's have a look at cut and pasting. So cut and pasting is different from copy and paste in that when you cut and paste, you remove the original data, take it to the clipboard, and then paste it somewhere else, erasing the original data where it was. So if I take this data here with my marching ants, I can Control and X, or I can right click and cut, and then I can paste it in a different location. When I paste, you'll see the data is now pasted to the new location. It no longer exists in the original location, and I now no longer have any marching ants. That is because the clipboard has been emptied. I kept referring to the clipboard, and so far it's just been a theoretical place stored somewhere in Excel. But we can actually view what is stored in the clipboard by expanding this clipboard button here. Now at the moment the clipboard is empty because the clipboard will only record items that I copy and paste while the clipboard has been open. In normal circumstances, without the clipboard open, there is only one item ever stored in the clipboard. By item, that could be one cell or it could be a number of cells. So let's have a look at what happens to the clipboard when we copy some of this information. First of all, I'm just going to copy that word hello, and hello appears on my clipboard. I can take that original block of text and I can copy that. And I could copy, let's copy some different options so that I can see that I am copying and pasting different things. So let's grab that small block of text and copy that. And here you can see that where I copied a column, my hello U234SSSS, that data appears in sequence in a row. It's not keeping the data in the traditional cell format, but all of the data item by item is listed. The same with my YYYs. All of the information from each cell is simply displayed in sequence. Now, it is also interesting that from the clipboard we can select a cell and paste any one of the given items simply by clicking on them. I can choose a different location and I can paste my YYYs by clicking on them. Final comments about using the clipboard is that over time, if you keep the clipboard open, it will keep all of that data stored in there. If you are copying very large amounts of data, you could start to fill up the clipboard, and that could affect the performance of Excel and your machine overall. If this was to happen, you have the option to simply clear your clipboard completely. And that takes all of these items of information, this data from Excel, and removes it from memory. The next way we can look at copying and pasting is by using drag and drop commands. To drag and drop, we simply select data that we're interested in copying. Let's take my YYY. I can grab this data by the outside edge, and you'll notice when I hover over the edge, I get this cross pattern with arrows on it. If I move away from the edge, it goes to our normal cursor. So I want to get to the edge there and grab the border while the arrows are displayed. Holding down the mouse button, I can now drag that information to a different location. This has the effect of cut and pasting. As you can see, the original data is no longer there and it has been moved to a different place. Now, this is one form of drag and drop. We can also copy paste with drag and drop. To do a copy paste, I'm going to do the same operation, hover over the border, click onto that border and drag. But now, instead of just dragging, I'm going to hold down the control key, and you'll notice when I do that a little plus, very small plus, has appeared next to my mouse cursor. That is because Excel is now telling me that it's going to copy and paste rather than cut and paste. If I let go of the mouse button, I'll now see that my original data has been copied. There is one other useful feature within the drag and drop family, if we like, and that is the ability to drag and drop between columns or between rows. So first of all, I'm going to drag and drop my data over here. Let's get rid of those. In fact, let's get rid of all of this data. I'm going to delete that data. And I'm going to take this cell here, and I want to put it in this list. We assume we have a list here. Again, I'm going to do a bit more tidying up and get rid of that data. I have a list here, and I want to move this YYY into the list. but I don't want to put it in the bottom or the top of the list. I want to move it somewhere in the middle. To do that, I grab by the border, waiting for the little arrow signs, I move it, and instead of Control, I'm now going to press Shift. You'll notice when I press Shift, instead of having a square, I've now got a little line. That is because Excel is telling me that I'm going to take the original cell and I'm going to squeeze it in between the other data that is already in the list. So if I let go of the mouse button now, you will see that my YYYs have been moved into the list. What was below it has now been pushed down, and what was above it has stayed where it is. This is a very useful command and can be used on entire rows or columns. For example, if I wanted to move an entire row of data, I could similarly grab by the border and move that entire row up and down a list. There's one other type of copy and paste that I want to demonstrate. It is not exactly a copy and paste, but in some regards it is a copy function. Let's start by clearing this data quickly. So often in Excel we are working with lists, and these lists are in tabular form. They have rows and columns and they look very square, and we might want to copy information through one of those columns in a sequential manner. So let's say here I have a product code for fruit, and all fruit has the product code FR. Now I could simply copy and paste this code FR, but I also have another copy option, which is to use the fill handle. The fill handle is basically activated by hovering over the bottom right hand corner of a cell where the little square, the little green square is. I'm going to hover over it, and you'll see that my mouse becomes a plus. With this plus, I can then click, hold and drag down. And as you can see, as I click through the rows, Excel keeps writing the text FR. That's because that's the information that will be copied down those rows. As I've let go of the mouse button, you'll see that the information has been copied down. This is a very useful and easy way to copy in columns and rows. I could, for example, keep filling down this row more or less indefinitely. And I can also copy across by dragging the cells across. Now, with simple text data, this is relatively limited. But as we move through the course and look at formula functions, you will see the immense benefit of being able to use the fill handle. So that concludes our sections on copy, paste and cut and paste. We have looked at some right-click operations to cut and copy, and we have also looked at some keyboard shortcuts, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste and Control-X to cut.